my water just broke. I felt like things really intensify.
She was right there and she was coming.
It was an amazing feeling.
I'm gonna cry just thinking about it. I could feel her head.
We heard her cry. We were squeezing hands and she was screaming.
I'm Bryn Huntpalmer, and you're listening to The Birth Hour. This podcast is designed as a safe place for women to come together to share their childbirth stories. Stick around and join us to hear informative and empowering birth journeys from women all over the world. Today's episode is sponsored by Cassidy's Cradle. Cassidy's Cradle was inspired by Teresa and Jerry's angel baby for Your Miracle Baby. Their daughter, Cassidy, was stillborn at 21 weeks, and they created Cassidy's Cradle to raise awareness around pregnancy loss and help provide resources to support families and empower parents to be able to speak about their angel babies and not feel they need to hide their grief. Cassidy's Cradle crib sheets are a breathable, open-weave design that encourages airflow and helps prevent overheating. They have deep pockets and an elastic that goes all the way around, ensuring a snug fit on standard crib mattresses that even the wiggliest little one can't loosen. They're made from 100% cotton muslin, and they just get softer and softer the more you wash them. Go to Cassidy'sCradle.com for more information or check out today's show notes page at thebirthhour.com, where I'll link to their website. For today's episode, we're doing a replay of my birth story with my daughter, who is about to turn 5 this week. We just had so much going on with the holidays and my husband's birthday and her birthday all being right around Christmas that I thought it would be fun to take a step back and just replay her episode, which is a really special one that my husband and I recorded together. So if you haven't heard it yet, I hope you really enjoy it.
How do you want to start? Okay, Bryn, tell me what it was like when you found out. I guess let's talk about from the beginning.
So it was, or let's start with, okay. So I feel like when we got married, we were both kind of ready to have kids pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But it didn't make very much sense because I was in grad school, you were in law school. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
And not a lot of money.
But we thought we had a window.
Right. So we decided that if we got pregnant in March, the baby would be due in December, and that would be good for Christmas break and having time off from school.
Yep.
So we're like, we'll try this month, and if it doesn't happen, then we're going to wait a whole nother year.
Yeah.
So it happened.
Mm-hmm. We were in Atlanta.
One and done.
Yeah.
And what was it like finding out? I can't even remember, really.
I can't remember either. We were talking about that earlier tonight, and I still can't remember.
I think you were asleep, and I bought the test, but I can't really even remember being late on my period or anything, but I had bought a test, and you knew I had a test,
yeah,
right?
It wasn't like a surprise. You didn't surprise me with it.
Well, I kind of did. I waited until the morning to take it, because that's what the box said to do. And you were still asleep when I took it, and
yeah.
I came in bed and was like, "You're going to be a dad."
Okay, yeah, I remember that vaguely, but yeah.
And it was the crack of dawn, 5, and I was like, I can't sleep now, and I'm pretty sure you wanted to sleep.
Yeah.
And then I don't really even remember what we did next. But we had both watched The Business of Being Born, mm-hmm. and we knew we wanted... or we're pretty sure we wanted a home birth or a birth center birth.
Yeah, because we'd already been thinking about it.
Right.
Ahead of time.
Right. And I had already been reading, a ton of pregnancy and birth and baby books, I think, before we even tried. I was just, fascinated.
Yeah.
I remember getting them from the library.
I read a few, but I also remember being kind of turned off by a lot of them for guys, because it was the caveman's guide.
Oh, yeah.
What are you talking about?
Why can't I just get a real,
you don't have to dumb it down.
Book? It doesn't need to be the caveman version.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that, too.
That was rough, so it kind of turned me off to a lot of them.
So we interviewed, I think, 4 midwives, but 2 of them were kind of far away, and one of them was very religious.
Yeah, well, yeah, and far away, if it rained the night before she needed to get out. Remember the dirt road? She couldn't leave. They were so remote. It was dirt roads, out windy dirt roads just to get there, so that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that one was too far, and you had to drive out there for all your prenatals and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I remember the one who was really religious. I remember asking her, how many births she takes in a month, just because I wanted to make sure my midwife would be available for my birth.
Yeah.
And she said something it's I trust God's plan or something like that. And I was like,
Yeah, I remember her. It was fun, too, because I remember she was really religious, but also super into Lord of the Rings, and so I was kind of divided. I was like, yeah, I'm kind of down with that.
I do not remember that. But I remember when we met Jennifer, we were both, like, immediately connected to her and loved that she was a straight shooter, but also, like, really easy to talk to. And
yeah, she was super pragmatic. Like, she wasn't, completely against using, modern medicine.
When she, like, had a bachelor's in science or something.
Right.
And I remember asking her about, like, worst case scenarios, and she always had an answer for everything. And she was just, like, really cool and funny, and I wanted her to like me, and I wanted to be friends.
Me too.
And we only got to see her, like, in the beginning once a month, and I remember, like, really looking forward to seeing her.
Mm-hmm.
And all of our prenatal appointments were at least an hour long.
Oh, yeah, man.
And hearing the heartbeat was always amazing, and...
Yeah. I mean, she even asked how I was doing, which was nice.
Yeah, she would always ask how you were doing and how, like, we were doing and all that stuff. And then we had to get a risk assessment.
Risk assessment, yeah.
Had to get a risk assessment, and we had a backup OB that we went to and got an ultrasound, and that's when we found out, like, a definite due date, which was only 1 day different than what Jennifer had said.
Yeah. And the backup was pretty far away. That was like a drive.
Yeah, in Siloam Springs.
That's right.
And so my due date was supposed to be, according to the ultrasound, December 15th, and according to Jennifer, December 16th. And I always told everyone December 15th because I was very hopeful that it would be sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think of other, like, major pregnancy things to talk about.
Uh-huh.
I started the pregnancy as a vegan.
Right.
And then
that was a big
slowly
thing for us
introduced eggs and dairy.
Right, because you were low on iron.
And then we found out I was low on iron really late in the game, like 28 weeks or something.
Yeah. Well, and where we lived was like the heart of Tyson country, and so
yeah, we
that
became
turned us off really quickly
because
we kept
of all
seeing
the
chicken trucks,
chickens on the road.
Oh man,
so disturbing.
Yeah. Anyway.
But yeah, so when I found out I was anemic, it was so low. My iron levels were so low that Jennifer said, you will not qualify for a home birth if you don't get these up. So she recommended Floridex and chlorophyll. Floridex I recommend to everyone. It tastes kind of like a Bloody Penny, but it got my iron levels up so fast, and I started eating meat and, like, bone broths and stuff like that, and spinach. I ate an omelet with spinach every single morning, followed by a shake with protein powder that had iron in it. So I think by our next appointment, my iron was good to go. Like, those things worked really quickly.
Yeah.
And we were fully convinced that we would have a baby by Christmas. And the due date of December 15th came and went, and then I remember your birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think you finished your finals, and we were like, okay, he's done with his finals. We're good to go now. Baby can come anytime.
Yeah.
We got a bunch of Christmas presents for the baby that said baby's first Christmas on them.
Many. Yeah.
And the year, so we still use them on our tree, but they're inaccurate because Christmas came and went and no baby. And we started trying, like, everything possible to get baby to come.
Mm-hmm. Probably went through a whole bottle of Frank's on top of everything else. Just
spicy food. We were hiking. There was, like, this super steep wooden climb behind our house. We would take our dog and hike way up it and back down and nothing.
Yep.
And so I guess it was like 41 weeks. We had a non-stress test and everything was fine, and then we were scheduled for a biophysical profile with the OB basically right at 42 weeks.
Yeah. And
we were pretty sure that if, like, kind of regardless of how that went, we were going to be scheduled for an induced.
Yeah. I think it was like that day or 24 hours, yeah.
Yeah, so on December 29th, I think, I took castor oil and black and blue cohosh, which were two things that Jennifer, our midwife, had suggested to induce labor somewhat naturally, and absolutely nothing happened. So that was a little discouraging. And then I think it was on the 29th that we had a midwife appointment, and she stripped my membranes.
Yeah.
And then I think I contracted a little bit right after that happened, and a few more contractions, and so we thought maybe something was happening, but we didn't want to get our hopes up. So we went to the movies, which was a terrible idea.
Terrible.
And the contractions completely stopped in the movies, and I fell asleep.
Yeah.
It was Mission Impossible 3.
Yeah, not easy to fall asleep to.
And Richard watched the whole movie.
You got a big gulp cola, which is what I love to do at the movie theater.
Yeah, and then we left, and I had no more contractions, and I was super pissed off.
Yeah.
And discouraged. And so I guess that night I took more castor oil and like doubled up.
Mm-hmm.
And I woke up on the morning of the 30th in the middle of the night, probably like 3 or 4 a.m., and just couldn't sleep. And I went and got on the computer and was checking email and stuff, and then the castor oil kicked in, and I had bowel movements that cleared everything out of my entire body. And I don't even know if contractions really started then, or if I knew that they were starting. But do you remember when I woke you up?
I think you were up early in the morning. I think you probably woke me up at like 5, maybe. I think you didn't wake me up when you woke up.
Yeah.
You let me sleep a little bit longer.
And was I having contractions when I woke you up? Like, I can't even...
I think so. You were saying that you kind of felt like things were starting, so we started timing pretty much when I woke up. And that's why you woke me up.
Yeah. And I remember you made me some scrambled eggs, and then I puked them up.
Yep.
And so we thought that the puking and the contractions were, I don't know, like 5 minutes apart or something. Like,
something like that.
Pretty good. Were good signs. And so we called our midwife, and she came over.
Because she said to call her, what, like 1 minute in duration and 4 minutes apart or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were pretty close to that.
And we weren't there yet, but when I threw up, I think we both just kind of thought, oh, this must be more intense than we think. And so I remember I got in the shower, and when I came out, she was there. Mm-hmm. And by the time I was talking to her about things, my contractions had slowed way down. And she checked me, and I was 4 centimeters dilated, 100% effaced. And I thought that was pretty good. But the contractions were not steady at all. And she had already told us that the baby was posterior, sunny side up, and so she was convinced that there just wasn't enough pressure being put on my cervix to really progress things. So I remember we went on walks around the neighborhood.
Yeah, I remember you would like walk maybe 10, 15 steps and then do a squat, get in the squat position for a while, and then we'd keep going. That
was kind of, I'm sure it looked really weird to neighbors. I did a lot of lunges.
I mean, you were pregnant, so it's like, I mean, you figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
It's not like just
but homebirth, like, in our neighborhood probably wasn't the first thing that came to mind.
Wow.
I did a lot of lunges and a lot of squats because Jennifer said those things would help posterior baby turn. Mm-hmm. I remember our midwife was, like, just sitting in our driveway, and every time we would make a block, she'd be like, how's it going? And I'd be like, shitty, like, same, not any better. So we did that for quite a while, and then she left. I remember Jennifer left at, like, 3, and then she said she was going to just give us some space to, like, labor on our own, and I remember when she left, things did pick up a little bit, and I think we'd already filled the tub at one point. Like, there was one point where things...
Yeah, we jumped the gun.
Well, I was looking back, though, at what I had written, and Jennifer thought we had reason to fill the tub when she first got there. Like, oh, already 4 centimeters.
Yeah.
Contractions 5 minutes apart. Go ahead and fill that tub. And it was December, and our house was not that warm, and our water heater sucked, and so the water was ice cold within a few hours.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't get in the tub at all. And so Jennifer left for a while, and I think we labored, a little bit more efficiently with her gone, Because I think I was kind of like recluse animal.
It was just the two of us. Turn off the lights, get in a dark room. It was great.
To be in a dark place, and as comfortable as I felt with Jennifer, like I felt a lot of pressure. I don't know when anyone else was looking at me. So she came back over at 9 p.m. and my contractions had slowed way down by then. Mm-hmm. I think she checked me again, maybe, and I was like 5 and super bummed out by that.
Yeah.
And so we had to make the decision whether to try to rest or try to do some things to jumpstart labor more. And her suggestions for that were to do black and blue cohosh again or pump. And neither of those sounded like very much fun with how tired I was from the whole day of laboring.
Yeah.
And so we decided to rest.
Yeah, I mean, because you were up at like 3 a.m. that morning, so it had already been a full day.
So I feel like you should talk about that night.
That night? Yeah, so you had gotten to a point where if you laid a certain way, it was like your left side, I think. Like there wasn't so much pressure in your back and your contractions were slowing down to like 12 to 15 minutes. So I remember the entire night we would lay down on the bed, try to go to sleep. A contraction would start and we'd wake up and you would get off first, or I guess I'd get up, help you up. Mm-hmm. You would, I think almost the whole time you were in the birth ball, and I was applying counter pressure on your back.
Yeah, I would like
as hard as I possibly could. Yeah.
Or there was this chair in our room that Jennifer wanted me to sit backwards on because she said that would help the baby turn. Yeah. And it was like so painful to sit backwards on. I hated it, but I would try to make myself do it because I was like, anything to make the baby turn, I'll do.
Yeah, and it was surreal. I remember, I mean, and this happened, I mean, for the rest of the labor, but I mean, just like thinking to myself, like I'm pushing as hard as I possibly can for counter pressure. And I mean, sometimes it wasn't enough, but like, then the contraction would end. And we would, in like a half-dazed state, get back in bed, lay down your left side, and spoon for 15 minutes. And get back up and do it all again, all night long. And that's just the way that went. And I remember it was kind of, it was surreal. Like, I'll never forget it.
Yeah, I feel like even with just 15 minutes of a break, though, we did, or at least I feel like I did, definitely fell asleep.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was like immediate after a while.
Yeah. Because I did feel rested in the morning, and there was a clock in the room, and I remember kind of like occasionally looking at it, and Jennifer came in around 7 a.m. to see how things were going, and she had spent the night in our guest room. Came in at 7 a.m., checked the heart tones, and everything was good, and I think she went home to shower, and we went for a walk, and on that walk, all the contractions stopped again, which was so cruel after having been kept awake by them all night long. Yeah. And I was so devastated. And she came back over at like probably 8:30 or something and had said that she talked to the Paula Hill, the like referring midwife or whatever. She was her like kind of backup. And they had kind of discussed my situation and talked about breaking my water, which is something that Jennifer never really did, but mostly she didn't like to do it because it put like a 12-hour timeline on your labor. But since I was already 42 weeks and had missed my biophysical profile, there was already kind of a lot of pressure in the timeline anyways. So she asked us if that's what we wanted to do and told us all of the pros and cons. And I remember she said something about like there's a slight chance that you could have a prolapsed cord, and in that case I would have to hold my hand like inside of you and keep it in and go to the hospital. And so she asked you to like clear out our whole car and make the car ready in case of emergency. And so you had installed the car seat. I think,
we had gas, but we didn't.
Which had taken you probably 5 hours or something, and you had to uninstall it. And I think she had checked me before that, and I was still a 5.
Yeah.
And I just like was in tears, basically, like so sad. And so I was all for breaking the water because I was like, I can't make it through a whole nother day and night of this. And so she did, and I didn't really feel a thing. I felt a little gush of water, and she said it looked good. I was looking back at our notes from the birth, and it said light meconium in the water, but she didn't mention that at the time, or at least I don't remember her mentioning that at the time.
I remember it just being good news.
Yeah, and I remember feeling really relieved by the gushing because I had been like wanting to pee the whole time I was in labor, but never feeling like all the pressure and everything that was going on. I always felt weird to pee, and so I was on these Chucks pads all the time, and I started just like peeing with my water gushing out. So I was like, there's water coming out anyways, like I'm just gonna pee when I want to pee. And I remember at one point Jennifer was like, are you peeing or is that water? Like, that's a lot of water. And I was like, I don't know, it's all just kind of loose down there.
It was like constant Chuck's pad.
Yeah, it was
all
just,
over the house. Yeah.
And as soon as she did that, I think she checked me right as she did it or something, and she said that when my water broke, I immediately stretched to a stretchy 7, which was great news. And my contractions became very close together, 2 minutes apart.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
That's probably when I set up the camera. I was so excited to get this thing on film.
I don't even remember you doing that.
Oh. Anyway.
I just remember being mad every time you left my side and wanting pressure with every single contraction. And I could tell if you were only using one hand. Yeah. And I would be like, both hands.
I had to like screw my arms in like I was going to push up on your back. But oh man.
And sometimes I would hang from your neck and kind of squat.
Yeah. You did that a lot. I remember there was one point that you did that, and I was just kind of like, maybe 2 points, just silently laughing to myself, because I remember thinking, like, I can't hold you up anymore, that you were taking every ounce of strength that I had to push on your back and just to hold you up, and then it was just funny because of what you were doing. Like, I was doing nothing, and I was at
Must
my
have
max.
Been so
I could
hard
not
for you.
possibly have done any more. And it was just thimbleful of what you were doing, so that was pretty funny.
So from like 9 to 1 was these really close together contractions, 2 minutes apart, very strong, very hard, very painful. And I remember Jennifer just saying to me, this is what we wanted. This is exactly what we wanted. And I was just like, I hate you. Like, this is not what I want right now. But she was right. Things were finally like really happening, and I was in full-fledged labor. Mm-hmm. So that was great. And around 1 or 1:30, I think I started kind of transitioning and was in really insane pain. Mm-hmm. And I remember, I don't know if you remember this or not, I remember saying to you, like, kind of in the corner, I can't do this. I need to go to the hospital.
Yeah, I remember you saying that once.
I need drugs or something. Yeah. I don't remember what I said. But do you remember what you said?
No, not really.
Me neither.
Other than, just probably general words of encouragement.
Yeah, I'm sure you were like, oh, okay, I don't know what to say to that. Like,
is that when you got in the pool?
So I really, really, really wanted to get in the pool, but the water was ice cold. And our water heater, was maxed out.
Yeah.
And so I just looked at you guys and I was like, I have to get in that pool. But I wouldn't let you leave my side.
Right.
So Jennifer got these giant, storage bins, the Rubbermaid storage bins, and started filling them with the cold water, dumping them in the tub, and then boiling water in every pot on our stove, and then bringing it. And she just kept doing that, running back and forth. And our kitchen is not that close to our bedroom.
No. It was across the house, basically.
Yeah, she just kept running back and forth, back and forth. And probably it felt pretty fast to me that she got it.
Well, yeah, she had 4 pots boiling at the same time. But
water takes a while to boil.
That's true.
But she got it warm, and it wasn't even warm. It was Luke
but
cold.
You would move to one side of the tub while she poured the boiling water in, and then move back to the other side when she would,
Yeah, I just got in and was like, okay, I can deal with this. And then when she would bring the boiling water, I would obviously stay away from it while she dumped it in. But as soon as she dumped it in, I would scooch over to it and just try to stay warm. But just being in the water felt so good. It took so much pressure off of everything. Mm-hmm. And that's when I started feeling the urge to push. And I asked Jennifer if I should push, and she said, if you feel the urge to push, push. And so I kind of did. I was grunting and couldn't control it, so I was, but I wasn't really doing it that effectively. And she was monitoring the baby the whole time, taking heart tones and stuff. And I remember she checked me at one point and said there was a swollen cervical lip, and that was kind of taking me back to a 9.5 or something, and was kind of in the way. And so she wanted me to get out of the tub to check it or to help with it. And so I got on the birth stool.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of manually held the lip back, which I would love to hear what that looked like from your end.
I mean, just what you would imagine. As far as I
cannot
remember.
imagine that.
She was just, I think it was one finger, maybe two, just trying to push it back, which could not have been easy.
But you could see, like, my cervical lip?
Yeah, I could see everything.
What?
Well, I mean, the birthing stool, because I was, like, just right there.
Yeah, the birthing stool was, like, a display mechanism.
Yeah. I remember you'd be, like, gripping it so hard it was, like, coming off the ground and stuff. I mean, we had, like, she held it down for a while, I held it down for a while. But she was doing, like, eight different things. It was...
And she was used to having
you were rocking it.
An apprentice.
Right.
Or a backup midwife, and she didn't for our birth. And so she was kind of running around like crazy.
Yeah.
But she eventually got the cervical lip out of the way. But it caused everything to be like really swollen. And I remember she said to me, most women would be kicking me in the face right now for this. But everything was so numb down there, and there were so many other things going on in my mind that it really didn't bother me that much.
Yeah.
But I remember when I was pushing, I never felt that confident with my pushing. And so I asked her to count for me. So with each contraction, she would count backwards from 10. And she would try to do that 3 times per contraction. And I would push while she was counting. And then as soon as the contraction ended, I would like kind of collapse a little bit and get a drink of water from my cup with a straw. I highly recommend a straw cup for your birth. And I had like a cold compress because I was sweaty. It was so hot.
Yeah.
And we did that for probably an hour.
Mm-hmm.
It was so hard. And you were trying to... What were you doing? Aside from giving me water.
With water, I was still... I think that there were some times, this is when I got pretty angry at the flip that we got to record it, because it just wasn't recording anything. The battery just did not work. But I was just kind of there. Moral support. Part of it was relaxing.
You weren't giving counter pressure anymore when I was on the birth stool.
No, I was just kind of there. I held the stool down. I think I held on to you at one point for something. I can't remember what it was, though. Maybe, I don't know.
And the stool we kind of had the stool backed up to the bed, and I could kind of lean back against the bed.
Yeah, at that point it was just, it was all you.
But what did it look like when, like, she was crowning? Could you see
the head coming out? I could see the
and
head, because Jennifer told me to get down there, and I remember seeing a little bit of head and still, like, being pretty confused. I'd seen at that point, like dozens of videos, but still it was like, this little head, I'm pretty sure I got to touch her head as well. And feel her hair.
Squishy.
Yeah, and still not really sure how that was going to happen.
Like how it was going to fit.
It's just not going to... Because, you see the kid, the babies with the cone heads, and I was like, she's going to have an actual point. Like that you could write with, if it... Yeah, and so that was... And I remember, watching her head when, like, the ring of fire kind of moment came, and it was really, really fast. Like, once you were pushing to get Adelaide out. Because I remember I wanted to catch her.
Yeah, and I'm going to back up and talk about when she started crowning, and our midwife was like, told me to slow down.
Oh, yeah.
She was like, slow down with your pushes, and she was saying that, so I wouldn't tear as much or whatever, and I was like, yeah, and in my head, like, I have such a distinct memory in my head of being like, yeah, right, I am not slowing down at all. It's been 34 hours, this baby is coming out. And so Jennifer stopped doing the 10 counts because she wanted me to not be pushing so hard, and I just kept doing them in my head.
She was not happy about that, I think.
And pushing just as hard. And so when the head came out, the whole body flew out.
She came out like a rocket.
And Jennifer barely caught her. You had wanted to catch, but there was no time for that.
No possible way. I wouldn't have been able to. It was like the head came out and it was just a rocket, which is kind of how she is today.
So that part is all, like, I have no image of that, really. Like, I would love to hear from your point of view.
That was my point of view.
just flew out.
Yeah.
I mean, but
she
you were
did.
watching my vagina go to like head size.
Yeah, but I mean, and so I mean, not to trivialize it, but I mean, that's not that. I mean, it's interesting, but it's not that like shocking to me, I guess, because I told you that I grew up like watching the Operation Channel on PBS. That kind of stuff is fascinating. So it wasn't like, I don't know. I remember at one point you were mentioning like how, I mean, you didn't want me to, have the birth, like alter my view of your vagina forever, kind of thing. I just didn't. But yeah, it was really interesting. She had like, her hair was dark because she had been inside, and the water and it was wet, and yeah, I mean, I do remember. It didn't make you very happy, but I remember when after she came out, that she had this like scowl on her face.
Oh my god!
Like being like coming into the world, and it's colder than she's used to, and whatever, just a shocking experience overall. And I remember thinking like, that scowl looks just like Bryn's scowl. I remember that being my very first thought of.
It wasn't just a thought; you said it out loud.
No, I did.
You were like, "She has your scowl."
And she does, but so that wasn't the right thing to say. But that was kind of people talk about how babies. Oh, she's got your nose, and my first thought was like, that's how Bryn looks when she's feeling a certain way, and it's this kind of endearing for me, but it was not for Bryn. So I should have kept that to myself. Note to you husbands out there: don't say whatever comes to your mind. But yeah, and I remember she came out just like a rocket, and we gave her to you, and I mean, it was just kind of, I mean, little did I know, I mean, I just, because I was still ignorant, even though I didn't, but that was like the first act of her birth story. And but yeah, it was pretty amazing. It was like a flood of emotion came over me when she came out. I would like secretly harbored, like I really, 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 really wanted a baby girl. And I grew up really wanting a baby sister. And so when Adelaide came, it was just, like over a decade of like kind of emotion swept over me. It was pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you were kind of crying.
Oh, yeah.
And I was just kind of in shock, I think.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe I had just done that. She was not screaming right away. Mm-mm. She was kind of coughing up some mucus, and so Jennifer had to like use the bulb to suction her, and then ended up giving her a little bit of free flow oxygen too.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit nervous still.
Yeah, and that was, that was kind of the beginning of, I still haven't really gotten over like being completely in awe of what you did. But I do remember the other dominant like feeling, other than like being a dad kind of feeling, was like having, and I don't think I've ever really felt this way about another person other than you, and maybe my mom when I was a baby, but like just like complete and utter trust in someone else. And like Jennifer, because Adelaide wasn't screaming immediately, and then we'll get into what happened next, but she was just, so on top of things and so calm and so competent that I remember thinking, especially in like the few weeks after, just how much trust we put in her and how easy it was to have complete trust in her competence and what she was doing. But
yeah, we just kind of like did whatever she said in those moments. And
yeah,
so I was holding Adelaide, and I don't even remember if she did scream eventually or if she just kind of made some little noises. Or
yeah, she did, but it wasn't anything like the big butt slap in the
right
in the show. Like she screams.
And so we moved from the stool up into bed.
Yeah.
And I was still really like aware of the placenta phase and didn't feel like I could really relax until that happened. Whereas with my second birth, I was just like, oh, you'll know when it's time to push the placenta out. But
Yeah.
with Adelaide, I was like, as soon as I had another contraction, I was like, should I be pushing? And Jennifer, I can't remember, I think she said, if you feel like you need to, or...
Yeah. Well, at this point, I think that we were in the bed, like I was you were laying on me at this point. Like I was behind you. Remember?
Oh, no, I don't remember that.
Oh, yeah.
So you had a great view of what happened next.
Yeah, no, yeah. So your back was on my front. Like you were, I think she had, like she asked me to do, I can't remember, but I think she asked me to do that.
To prop me up or something?
Yeah, to help prop you up and prepare
So
for
then I pushed, and instead of my placenta, out came a geyser of blood.
Yeah, it was a lot of blood.
And it shot out like all over Jennifer's outfit and our bed and everything. Like I saw it shoot out. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, if you see like in like the birth story that you have online, I mean, she's wearing a different outfit. She had to change. She's wearing a completely different outfit.
She always brings an extra outfit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of intense. And so we were like, whoa, what was that? And it made, obviously, things a little bit more intense. And so then Jennifer was like, okay, we need to get the placenta out quickly. And she very gently was pulling on the cord. The cord was still attached to Adelaide. And she was telling me to push even without contractions. And it came out and everything looked fine. Like it looked complete and everything. And we kind of had a moment's relax, I think, at that point. I think she even I feel like Jennifer even was looked at the placenta, everything looked good, even stepped away for a bit, and then she came back over and saw how much blood I was still losing, and I had soaked through 3 or 4 Chuck's pads.
Right.
And so then she was nervous and gave me a shot of Pitocin and a pill that I think was like an herbal thing to stop bleeding. And that didn't stop it, and so she felt the need to go in and scrape the walls of my uterus with her hand. And that was the most painful thing of my entire life. I had just been through this crazy long labor, posterior baby, almost 9 pounds, pushed for a couple hours. It was not an easy birth, but that part after was pain I can't even put into words or describe. And I started kicking her, trying to get her off me, just pushing my foot out as hard as I could with each
you kicked her hard
time she did it, but she was a beast and it did not faze her at all. And I let out these screams that you can probably describe.
Yeah, I remember your scream. That was the only time there was a moment of fear. And it was fleeting because, like I said, I trusted in what Jennifer was doing, but man, I can hear it to this day, like the scream, and it makes it seem like trivial, but the only thing I can compare it to is in the movie The Princess Bride, where the guy, he dies and lets out the wail, and then you can hear it, and they have ridiculous lines about the scream of that kind of guy, but it was that kind of I remember it was shocking how loud and how intense you screamed, especially after you just gave birth without medication. And so that it worried me for just a little bit, and then Jennifer was able to kind of calm things back down, and you calmed back down.
And you were holding Adelaide through that, right?
Well, I was propping you up and holding Adelaide, and I think that was part of the fear. Was just it made me jump when you screamed like that. And it was I was really, I do remember I was genuinely worried for a moment.
And she did it again. And
because you hear, that, things happen in birth, and it's like the one, a million chance. And for a split second, I was like, oh my gosh, that kind of a scream that's not a normal scream for the situation. I guess it is a normal scream
when someone's fisting you right after giving
their
birth,
forearm up, so, but yeah, and it was just
and as much as it hurt in the moment, as soon as her hand was out, it was okay again.
Yeah.
So it was
it was tough because I remember we had to do the free flow with Adelaide. I remember holding that over her head and over her face, and then later on we did it with you. It's just kind of, there was a lot. It was a 34-hour labor. We had been up and down the whole night, and then the scream, and it was just, yeah, I felt just after, the rush of amazing emotion of like seeing you do something, basically like a superhero, and here we have our baby daughter, and then all of a sudden it's just a whole different emotion. It was a lot, and I didn't experience any pain, so yeah,
that was not fun. But once she did that, I mean, she was also like, so while she was scraping the walls of my uterus, she was like taking clots out of me, like just by the fistful.
She was literally scraping urine.
Yeah, which after the fact made it to where I didn't really like lose a lot of blood in the postpartum period. But so yeah, once she did that, it really did kind of slow down the bleeding and things got better. But I had lost a lot of blood. It made me really weak and dizzy, and so I couldn't do the herb bath that I wanted to do that night, and I couldn't even get up and go to the bathroom. I remember she really wanted me to pee, and I couldn't get up.
No, use Chuck's pad.
But I tried to pee on the Chuck's pad. She was like, that's really going to burn, because usually for your first pee, you like use the Perry bottle.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even make myself pee on the Chuck's pad, and so she was searching for a catheter. She was about to use a catheter, and she couldn't find one in her kit. And I'm so thankful for that, because having a catheter put in without meds after everything else would have been not my favorite.
Yeah. Well, and that's what it was like a lot of fluids, a lot of food. And did you have free flow oxygen too? 'Cause you were like dizzy when you tried to get up to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, I got some oxygen. I finally did get up to the bathroom, but I had to lay down on the bathroom floor.
Yeah.
And that's when I had my first meal. I'm pretty sure you brought me Luna bars, and I just like ate them on the floor.
Yeah.
And a shake, like a protein shake. They were like, what do you want to eat? And we had been preparing for this birth for 2 weeks straight and like stocking our fridge, thinking, oh, we're going to have a home birth. Here's all the amazing food we'll eat after. And then Adelaide just kept not coming, and we would just eventually eat the food. And by the time she came, like, we really didn't have very much food. And so they were like, what do you want to eat? I was like, I don't care. Like, just food. Bring me all the food. And so I had the weirdest assortment of food after she was born. But eventually we got tucked into bed, and I just got to lay in bed and watch her newborn exam and see how much she weighed. And I remember
first outfit on.
I was just going to say, you put her first outfit on, and that was like the most precious thing to watch ever. You were so nervous.
It was so hard.
So hard. So worried about putting anything on her. And it was just like a sleep sack. Really basic stuff. And then I think so she was born at 3:27, and Jennifer left around 9 p.m.
I think so, yeah.
And tucked us into bed, and I don't even know if we called anyone or texted anyone.
I think it was the next day. We might have texted like late in the night.
Like maybe my mom or something. We were so tired though, and it was New Year's Eve, and so everyone was out partying anyways. Mm-hmm. So we made our calls the next day, and I remember like no one answered their phone because they were all hungover probably. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Talk about stitches.
Oh yeah, I had a lot of tears.
It was like Act 3. Act 2.
I just want to say that my husband just acted out, mimed stitching up a vagina.
I didn't want to say it if you didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah, so I had a lot of tears from Jennifer, like having to be manually in there pushing the cervical lip out of the way, and that just caused everything to be swollen, which I guess makes you more prone to tearing. Plus birth stool, not a great thing to push on. Just kind of puts a lot of strain on your tissues. Mm-hmm. And also 9-pound posterior baby didn't help. So I had a lot of tears, and I didn't know how many stitches I got until just now, this evening. I was looking back at my midwife's notes from my birth, and it was 10 stitches total, and it says 6 interior, 4 exterior, which I don't even want to know.
Well, I think that was the point where you really were like, I don't want Richard to see this happen, because this is
and
not
she didn't have an assistant or anything, and so she asked you to hold the light so that she could see what she was doing, and I was laying on the bed holding Adelaide.
Yeah, she was like, I need light, and I had this great study light. The odd light. It's like basically the brightest fluorescence you can possibly imagine.
So you're shining that on my vagina, my swollen, mangled
I had to like
vagina.
hold it at the right angles and stuff, and
And I was like looking at you, and I was like, "Do not look at this."
Well, and I remember because that's the, and I think I might have even mentioned at the time about and here I am again, the PBS channel, the hospital show. It was like
you're like, I've seen it all.
It was very dispassionate, it was fascinating, but that's about it. Like it didn't change anything. But I remember you being like, "Stop looking."
And Jennifer was like, "I need him to look. I need him to shine the light in the right spot." I tried to shine the light and not look. And I remember this was probably her most stressful time. Like
Jennifer's?
Yeah, I don't think she really loves stitching.
No, she doesn't usually do it unless it's absolutely necessary.
But I really needed it. I'm really glad she did. But I remember at one point I was trying to hold my legs like up and back and out of the way, and I'm just on a regular bed. It's not like you have stirrups at the hospital or whatever. So I'm trying to like support my legs, and they're just exhausted. I mean, my legs are exhausted at this point from labor and pushing and everything. And so at one point my foot slipped and like touched her glove. And I remember, I forgot about this until she was so pissed. She was like, because it meant she had to take her glove off and like get a new glove because it was contaminated or whatever. Yeah. And then she couldn't find, I think we had gone through so many gloves.
Yeah, I think she couldn't
find another glove, and it was just like an ordeal.
Yeah, she was snippy, which makes, I mean, she had been up almost as long as we,
Yeah. And
she bailed water half the day.
And with that, I got a shot of lidocaine, and it didn't feel great, and there were like one or two where I was like, eek, but it wasn't anything compared to what I had just gone through, and I was holding my baby right next to my face, so I was in a pretty good place throughout the stitching part. But it was a rough recovery, and I'm really glad we were at home because I didn't want to get in a car at anytime soon. The first time I got in a car was for our 2-week checkup at her office, right. And that was rough. I used a donut to sit on, like a donut cushion, because things were not pretty down there for a while. It definitely took a while to heal.
Yeah, I remember at some point, I mean, it was probably around 6 weeks when, like, the doctors normally say it's okay to have sex again. We're like, no.
I was looking at my notes.
This recovery is still happening.
From our 6-week checkup, and Jennifer, like, one of the questions is sex and like contraception plans or something, and next to it just says no, because she was like, "So have you guys tried?" I'm like, "No."
Well, I think at one point you even mentioned it. Like, I have this kind of, and that could just be, like rewriting my own memory at this point, but I feel like we were in the bedroom and you mentioned that, and I remember like laughing, being like, "Are you kidding me? Like, you just let me know, like, I'm good."
Yeah, I would say for us it probably, I know we tried sooner than this, but I don't think things felt right until like probably 12 weeks.
Yeah, I remember trying once and it wasn't.
So double the time that doctors say.
That was so like awe-inspiring, and it got scary, and then also like overwhelmingly wonderful, and such a roller coaster of emotions, and I was just the accessory to the birth,
But I feel like it gave us so much confidence as parents, like.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we both were just like, I can't believe we just did that. I can't believe we're doing this. Like, from night one, we are the only ones in charge of this baby. No one is there, like, to take the baby to the nursery or to give baths or change diapers. It was all up to us to do everything. And we were first-time parents, very attentive. We kept a log of every pee and poop, and
we did.
I remember you.
Oh my gosh, we kept so many logs. So ridiculous.
And I remember you would change a diaper like, I don't know, like every 20 minutes. Like, I just remember seeing this stack of diapers in the pail, and I was like, "Listen, dude, like, we gotta leave them on for a little bit longer. We can't afford to keep up at this rate." Like, there was a drop of pee in that diaper, you were gonna change it.
I remember too, like, just being constantly terrified when she would not breathe. Like, when I couldn't, like, I would want to always check her breathing early on. I mean, it probably lasted for a few months, but it was just like, because every once in a while they just like their breath holds for a little bit longer than you would like. And I was like, I would wake up, I don't know, 10 times a night and just like put my fingers on her chest, to make sure she was breathing.
And I'm glad you were on breath duty, because I was exhausted and just sleeping whenever I could.
Well, I wouldn't want to. I just was terrified. I couldn't help it. It just freaked me out.
And nursing was very hard in the beginning. I remember having a lot of pain and not being able to figure out a good latch, and eventually ended up with mastitis.
Yeah.
And had to go on antibiotics for that, and it took a long time to kind of get the swing. And the two things that helped were the milk catcher thing. It's called Milkies, and you can put it on one side while you're nursing on the other side, and it's awesome if you have an oversupply of milk. And I would fill up the entire milk catcher on that one side while I was nursing on the other side, and it was like 2 ounces, and so we would save it.
Could fill those little packies. I did that so many times.
And we'd freeze it, and we had
a freezer full.
We had a freezer full of milk, and I never once pumped. It was all from the Milk Saver thing, and I ended up donating it to an adoptive mom, and it was gallons and gallons of milk. But that thing was awesome because before that I was just soaking through breast pad after breast pad after breast pad, and it was not fun. And I never could do the laying down and nursing thing because I was such a leaky nurser, and it would just leak everywhere. I had to get up every single time and do my whole setup. And I think with both of our kids, you would always get up with me, and I would get all situated, and then you would change the baby's diaper and hand me the baby, and I feel like that really helped with my emotional well-being, to feel like, we were in this together and I wasn't just the only one waking up a million times a night. And of course you would go back to sleep when I started nursing, but if I ever, needed anything, you would get up and help me. And I think I would have been really resentful if you were just like sleeping through all of that.
I do remember that got to be such a routine. Like I got to be like almost like it was like clockwork. I remember handing the baby to you and be like almost asleep before I even hit the bed by the time I would walk back to bed. Yeah, I remember it was so like, especially, I mean, not especially, but like along with like you giving birth, I remember being so like incredibly proud of you, because there's like some like a deep persistence in things. Like the breastfeeding was really hard to start off with, and I remember it was just like you just wouldn't give it up though, and even when it would be completely reasonable and like completely understandable from a mom's perspective, not a dad's. Like forget that, but to just go to the bottle or do whatever, and it was being really proud. I mean, like you stuck with it because you wanted to and because you knew it'd be good for her, and it was awesome to see it happen, and work, and yeah, that whole experience. I mean, still to this day, but I mean, it's one of those kind of formative, I think, things for us that it's just like an incredible bonding experience. Just getting to witness you do all that and just getting to be there was I mean, you can't top that kind of a thing. And the same thing with our son that you magically held off for until I got back into town. But yeah, it's just
his birth is episode 1 if you want to listen to it.
Episode 1, that's right. It was astonishing to watch and be present for all of that, and to be completely physically taxed and not be the one doing any hard work. That's so crazy.
Yeah, I feel like I could definitely feel that too. Like, feel that you were amazed by me and proud of me, and I don't know. It's a good feeling. I remember we got like a little judgy about other people's births for a while. Be like, we would be like, well, they didn't, have to go through this and this and this. Like, that's child's play. Yeah. But we were just on our own birth high, and
it was the birth high kind of thing. Yeah, man, it's still funny. Like I could still like there's only a few really, really vivid moments that I remember, and one is just like laughing to myself about how ridiculous it was, how tired I felt, given like what you were going through for Adelaide. It's just, oh man.
I remember you said that you hadn't even like taken a break to pee the entire 34 hours.
I think like doing the pressure and holding you up when you were going into your squats was like, and all the liquid in my body, I was just like sweating it out constantly. I didn't have any liquid in my body, but
and I was not concerned for your well-being at all. Like I hear these moms, no, but I hear moms that are like, "Oh, I wanted him to sleep. Like he needed his energy too." And I was like, not about that at all. It's about you, like
dig deep,
being there for every moment and using both hands for counter pressure, and
oh man,
not leaving my side. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Anything else?
I think that's about it. I mean, I will say it was funny after the fact when like family came into town and didn't quite, like, they didn't grasp how hard it was, like, and like what the recovery was like, you know, and having to, because we did, was it Christmas that we did after that, or what was it?
My mom, well, yeah, because no one had done Christmas yet, because we couldn't leave our area for Christmas because we could go into labor at any point, and so my mom and my sister came,
which was awesome,
like the day after she was born.
Awesome, yeah.
But my mom brought all these Christmas presents and, like, wanted me to open them, and I could care less. Yeah. And I remember, like, sitting in the rocking chair on, like, a blow-up donut because I had asked my mom to stop and buy me one.
That was the first time, like, out of bed, really.
Yeah,
just, like,
and I was, like, opening these presents, trying to be like, thanks, I love it, and, like, just being so out of it. And I remember, like, weeks later, we found some of that stuff and we're like, where the hell did this come from? Like, who is this from? What is this for? Like, we were both completely checked out for that.
Well, I remember for that too, because we'd gone to go get like Subway sandwiches to eat, and like it was
the only thing open on New Year's Day.
I know, and that's what I equate with that time is like Subway sandwich.
Yeah, my food situation after her birth sucked.
We
didn't have anything good in the house, and it was New Year's Day, so only Subway was open. Whereas with Darwin's, our midwives made, like, delicious soup in the house, and then I had, like, delicious seafood for the next few days.
I know. Jennifer was basically her own team. We had, with Darwin's 3 people, and she was doing the job of 4, probably. It was amazing.
Yeah, and I remember, like, during the scary points when I was bleeding and stuff, she, like, did not want to leave my side for a minute. Mm-mm. And if she needed something from the kitchen or something, she would send you, because she was like, had to keep an eye on me the whole time.
Yeah, I was just,
she was a boss.
Yeah, say enough. Like, I mean, it's a weird experience to feel that kind of trust in someone, where it's like, no matter what happens, like, you've got us covered, and that's how it was.
Yeah, and with the birth that we had, if it had been like a random on-call doctor, I think I would definitely have had some birth trauma and emotional stuff to work through, because without the trust that we had in her, it would have been a whole different story to have someone like fisting you after you give birth, like, and just all the other things that happen. And I'm also really pretty convinced that if we hadn't had a midwife and planned for a home birth, we would have ended up with a C-section, because 42 weeks in one day, long ass labor, posterior baby, 9-pound baby, which doctors will tell you is too big to fit, and things like that. So I'm so grateful that it worked out the way we wanted, because towards the end there, it was looking like it might not. So but it was an awesome experience, and it made me obsessed with birth, and I immediately wanted to be, I didn't really ever want to be a midwife. I think mostly because of what I saw Jennifer go through. I was like, that is some heavy shit to deal with on a regular basis. But I got really into birth photography, even though I hadn't had a photographer at her birth, and really wanted to pursue that, and did for a little bit in Oregon. But the on-call lifestyle didn't really work out for our family.
Or in like 100-mile stretch of coming, like you had to drive.
Yeah, it was like I had to drive
to get anywhere.
2 hours to get to a birth, but that's kind of where the idea for the Birth Hour podcast came from. Was my just love of being around birth and hearing other women's birth stories and connecting with people on that level. And I'm not going to have a baby every year, so it's nice to be able to kind of stay in the birth world and experience other people's stories, though hearing these stories makes me want to have a baby every year, which is not a good thing. But so that's kind of where the Birth Hour was born from, was that first birth experience, and how empowering it was, and how I just wanted to be able to share that experience and let other people know, that birth can be a ton of different things, but hopefully it can be amazing. And be what you want it to be.
Yeah, I mean, just editing, there's always a point where I'm editing where I'm like, wow, that person's such a badass.
I know, and you cry, or I don't know if you do, but I cry like every episode.
Not every episode because I'm editing, so it gets.
You're more technical.
But sometimes, yeah. But
there's always that point, like even if it's a funny birth or something, like they'll talk about that moment where the older sibling meets the younger one or something, and you're just like, oh, yeah, it's the best. Anyways, thanks for listening to us ramble about our baby girl's birth, and tomorrow's her birthday, New Year's Eve, and the last day of the year. And we'll be back next week with more episodes.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thanks so much for listening. Head over to thebirthhour.com to comment on my show notes page, to connect with me, and to check out Cassidy's Cradle Crib Sheets, today's sponsor. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at The Birth Hour. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, head to thebirthhour.com to sign up for our newsletter. And if you really like the show, please subscribe and leave a review in iTunes. I'm Bryn Huntpalmer, and you've been listening to another episode of The Birth Hour. Thanks again.